Hey guys, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Charlie Puth record, Charlie. Charlie is the latest studio album from semi-superstar pop musician Charlie Puth. I say semi because he's just not quite on the level of some much more megastar tier acts like Taylor Swift, but he's relevant to current pop culture nonetheless. And this is a bad album, I'm just gonna say that. Look, I won't lie. I dodged this album when it came out. I knew I was going to hate it. I knew I was going to think it was terrible and one of the worst albums I've heard all year. I heard the singles, thought they were terrible. I heard snippets of the non singles, thought they were also terrible, or at least a bit more awful at some points. I mean, it was just not a good experience overall, and I hadn't even listened to the full album from front to back yet. And then I sat down and I started making my worst albums of 2022 list, a video that I'm working on right now that's meant to come out hopefully within the first week or so of 2023. And then I was, putting all together the worst albums of the year, and I thought, this list is going to be really dishonest if I don't include that damn Charlie Puth album. And now, here I am, finally forcing myself to review the new Charlie Puth record, because if I don't, then it won't be right for me to include it on the list, and if I don't include it on the list, I will be a liar who lies. And yeah, this is one of the worst albums of the year by far. At the very least, this is one of the worst performances to come from any mainstream artist, or at least relatively mainstream artist. He's falling off a bit throughout this entire year overall, because Charlie Puth himself makes the kind of music, the kind of pop music that's meant to dominate the radio, that is defined by one particular thing, and that one particular thing is performance. And that's not a bad thing by any means. There are tons of pop musicians that define themselves by their own performance, their own presence, and kill it. The problem is, though, Charlie Puth has no presence. He has zero charisma, and it shows throughout this music that with any other performer that had any degree of charisma, it would probably be fine, but here he has none, and obviously it really does negatively affect the record in turn. Charlie Puth is really just the uncooked pasta of the music world. I mean, his music is stomachable, but it's also constantly reminding the listener that there's similar music out there that is better for them to listen to and just as easy to access. I mean, why are you going to eat uncooked pasta when you can just eat cooked pasta? It just so happens that his latest studio album, Charlie, is just a little bit below his already very, very low standards, resulting in what may actually be the worst album he's done so far, which is kind of a feat, you gotta give him that. This record is somehow incredibly synthetic and soulless, despite it trying to not be. I mean, really, Charlie as an album is meant to be this very impassioned, at times extremely heartbroken record, and it's meant to have all of the emotions that come with those feelings. And it just so happens that none of them translate, because even if Charlie Puth himself put in the performance of a lifetime through this record, which he doesn't for clarification, but if he did, it still would not shine, just because this record's instrumentation and production feels so dull and so lifeless, and it kills any potential energy that this record may or may not have had with better production. For a record that you can see just from looking at his social media for a little while throughout the past couple of months, had a lot of time and passion being put into it, Charlie as a record feels like something that was made by an amateur in some sort of beginner's music creation program like Cakewalk, and that's actually a bit of an insult to things like Cakewalk, because those are actually of more use than any Charlie Puth project in general will ever be to anybody. Even though it is true that Charlie himself actually put a lot of time into making this record overall, it's hard to believe. I mean, it really is. Seeing something so creatively uninspired and overall predictable in terms of song progressions, lyrical progressions, and a variety of other things relating to production, it just is hard to believe that this is something that a man really poured himself into, because if he did, then really that's not saying a lot about his creative abilities. And look, I'm not saying I'm better than Charlie Puth or anything like that, but at the same time, I think I'm a bit better than Charlie Puth. I think the part that frustrates me the most about Charlie as an album and Charlie the musician is that he thinks he's clever, and he thinks he's clever on this record, and there are times, admittedly, where he kinda is, and it doesn't necessarily succeed or make the album better, but it's commendable at least. But then you have songs like the use of an actual light switch being flicked in the track Light Switch, or the song that's hilarious as backing vocals being fake laughs. Those are all meant to be somewhat clever, I guess, and self-aware, but the issue is that those factors of those songs add quite literally nothing to them. They're completely unimportant and feel wildly unnecessary. For an album that does seem to, at times, really pride itself on its emotive qualities, which don't really work out in the end, but I digress, there are a lot of moments where this sort of annoying, obnoxious self-awareness really detracts from the record emotionally, and it's a shame because I'm not saying that this record would be a masterpiece or anything like that if it took itself a little bit more seriously, but at the same time, it would maybe at least be not as horrible, it would just be a little bit bad, or maybe just mediocre. I don't really know, I can't really say, because what we're left with is a finished project, a record that kind of tries to walk the line between self-aware pop music and highly emotional, self-serious pop music, not really deciding which one it actually wants to be, and just a blurry, muddy mess in the end because of that. So overall, Charlie as a record may be Charlie Puth's worst record to date, and that's saying something because he's put out some hot garbage in the past, if I'm being totally honest, but at least that hot garbage in the past felt like it was trying to do something emotionally, but on this record, he can't really decide if he wants to be this deeply emotional, sensitive artist, or if he wants to be a bit more self-aware and a bit more comical at times. And because of that, it just kind of feels like a directionless album that serves no purpose in Charlie Puth's discography as in terms of artistic growth. It feels like it serves no purpose in the current musical landscape. It's a record that bores me to tears but annoys me at the same time. And honestly, I can't even recommend this to the biggest die-hard, ride-or-die Charlie Puth fans, if there even are any out there. I'm going to give this record 1.5 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that's the end of this album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.